Rapture over Rome, Part 5. Amos chapter 5, verse 18, KJV. Verse 18. Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord! To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness, and not light. For those not raptured, the not being raptured is the least of worries. One could even die in what will happen on that day, in some careless action of insanity and blindness. The day of the Lord is a day of darkness, as written in Amos chapter 5, verse 18, KJV. Verse 18. Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord! To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light. Back to my dream. I saw the news that showed massive accidents on the highways. Corpses everywhere, bodies torn apart, arms, legs cut off from car accidents. When cars crashed into buses, buses crashed in cars, mountains of metal, thousands of people dead, with their bodies laying out of their cars and heads through car window shields. Airplanes crashing over cities, hitting buildings, or in the countryside. Cities in flame, train wrecks, and everyone all across the globe on any kind of transport were in the same condition of insanity and blindness when seeing that cloud being killed in accidents or causing accidents in their madness and blindness. Hospitals all across the globe overrun by people, ambulances that cannot go anywhere, or because the roads were all jammed by car accidents, or because the drivers were in the same condition of those that stared at the cloud that had appeared even where it was night over other countries, and gave the same spectacular event with global blindness at staring at the cloud. But it wasn't just the blindness and madness, but what I saw was as if everything had stopped and wasn't working. Airplanes falling from the sky as if the engines stopped flying, and everything that went on, gas and electricity, just stopped. That I was seeing some news from TV screens is not to reveal that TVs were working, but just to know in this dream that what was occurring in Rome was happening all across the globe. The voice nearby told me that the reason why everyone was terrified, in fear, was that they had just seen the face of God shortly before the cloud disappeared, and the sight of that face drove them completely insane and blind. The voice said to me that when God appeared showing his face to all those in any state of sinful and unrepentant condition, what they saw was not the face of God, but a mirror effect of themselves as God sees them in their state of sin, and what they saw of themselves were the monsters they appear as God sees them. Faces of the most scariest creatures on earth, faces chewed by worms and rotting corpses, eaten by insects, cadavers decomposing in the earth, is what they saw of themselves and everyone around them, as God sees them in their acts of perversion and depravity of the senses. But there were other reports coming from other nations of strange phenomena by which not all went crazy nor blind. Some did not experience the fear, but reported their testimony of the events as the most beautiful thing they ever saw. Who these people were not affected by blindness or insanity was not revealed to me. Some saw only the cloud, others only the people in the cloud, but did not see anything else. And other reports of mass miracles of healing, such as the blind that now see, people with Down syndrome instantly healed, the deaf that could hear, people with amputated legs and arms with their arms and legs grown back in light speed, the bedridden, or any sort of disability, paralysis, instantly healed of their disabilities. The voice told me that the energy used by God, by which the voice identified as energy or a power, is of the same nature that God uses in creating stars and planets instantly, and is of the same properties of that energy he used in creation of planet Earth and life on the planet. The voice called it instant creation, and its power is unlimited, from an atom to a star instantly, entire planets and galaxies created in instants. At this point I seeked in Bible scripture anything about this mysterious force, and found in Matthew chapter 27 verse 52 about the resurrection of dead saints on Christ's death on the cross, with my dream that speaks of a resurrection on the rapture of the church. Matthew chapter 27 KJV verse 50. Jesus, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost. 51. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain, from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent. Verse 52. And the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose. 53. And came out of the graves after his resurrection, and went into the holy city, and appeared unto many. On Jesus' death, there were resurrections of the dead. Of course, not that of a resurrection into immortality as that of Jesus. Resurrections of that of Lazarus, that was resurrected to then die later in natural death. In my dream, I saw resurrected saints that were then raptured in heaven, and then others soon to be resurrected. Till 3 days they died. Back to my dream. But the strangest news was of dead people having risen from the grave. The news from the TV spoke of the dead coming back to life. Within moments I found myself in a cemetery shortly before the cloud had disappeared. There were people panicking, running from the cemetery in state of fear, not because after having stared at the cloud, but of the sight of dead relatives recently buried, and then seeing them alive standing next to their graves. They, as resurrected, appeared as if they did not know what they were doing there, or without even knowing that they had been dead. Not as in a zombie movie where arms and heads poke out of the ground, but just appearing next to their graves as if they were teleported out of their grave, alive instantly in the twinkling of an eye. The voice next to me told me that some of them had recently died, since 3 days earlier, and that the resurrection of these dead would have them resurrected till 3 days before this resurrection. But those that would have died any time during the last 3 days would not be resurrected yet, but later they are to be resurrected. Of this point, I do not understand what the voice meant. About these dead appeared as a dream inside this dream, and there were reports all across the globe of these dead coming back alive. One report that I managed to pick up by another TV screen showed dead people wandering in cemeteries being exchanged as living people, visiting the cemetery, wandering and wandering as if they looked lost, as if they did not know where they were and what they were doing in a cemetery, and even asking questions to people passing by of where they were, and dressed in their funeral type clothing as when buried. They had no recollection of having been dead, and the memories they had were of themselves when they were alive. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 24 KJV. Then cometh the end, when he shall have delivered up the kingdom to God, even the Father, when he shall have put down all rule and all authority and power. Back to my dream. In the meanwhile, the world was in chaos, with buildings on fire, and people insane, screaming in the streets or going crazy in their homes, watching the cloud from their windows and doors. Hospitals being filled and no ambulances running because there were no ambulances in service, or because the ambulances were stuck in the traffic jams, or that their drivers were or blind or insane. Unlike what Rapture movies show with scenes of chaos due to the disappearance of people and reason for so many disasters because people had disappeared, in this dream it wasn't the disappearance that caused the accidents, but that the people had become blind and insane after having stared up at the cloud. In the meantime, I was watching the scene of the dead wandering in the cemetery, and that these dead managed to find the exit to go out of the cemetery and into the streets, walking as if in a line or in groups, with intentions to go home or where they were staying before having died, or to seek out their living relatives. I saw one who managed to find and was greeted by the widow, that screamed at the sight of her husband ringing the bell of the house. But then the voice revealed to me that the dead were to go away after several hours as they appeared. They were to disappear, and then showed me all the dead that had recently risen, going away in a mist, forming around them, and that they would follow the mist and then disappear completely, and that their resurrection was only a temporary phase to go to another place that was not of this earth. I saw a mist as a cloud forming around them, and they were gone. Then the scene changed. The voice told me that the hearing loss from the sound of the explosion type lightning trumpet sound was only temporary, but the insanity did not go away completely. No one would have a complete sane mind again, and that the effects of that shock would change the personality of everyone, making visible a dark side in everyone, depraved and even evil. This is the end of part 5. Thank you.